Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Mark Edwards. Welcome back to the Channel Zone podcast. Today, I'm joined by a fascinating character with a perspective on the world of tech and tech sales. That is Simone Warren. Simone is a sales director for technology, media, and telco at NCC, a leading specialist in cybersecurity. Now, over the years, Simone's had many senior roles with some of the most recognized names in the industry, including Microsoft, BT, Siemens, and Virgin Media. Now, what makes Simone's story especially compelling, I think, is the blend of experience that she brings by not only navigating the fast changing world of technology sales, but also by breaking barriers as an Asian woman in tech in what is still, today in 2025, very much still a male dominated field. Now, on top of that, Simone has written and published the first installment of her memoir, called The Fate We Make, that tracks her own early years in life and helps explain where Simone's determination and resilience come from. So today, we're going to explore the changing nature of the sales environment, the rise in cybersecurity as a board level issue, the human side of leadership, and the lessons that has learned along the way. Simone, thanks ever so much for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you?
I'm very well, and it's good afternoon for me. Um, yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to join you on this podcast. Really appreciate the opportunity to share my experience, and hopefully other people will be able to benefit and learn from some of my experiences.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure that's why you're here, and I'm sure that's going to be the case. So, let's kind of kick things off then. Again, having gone through your LinkedIn profile, there's a fair history of companies or organizations. You've been in the sales world, I think. I won't put a number on it, but it's a fairly lengthy period of time. So you've seen sales from the inside, I think you started at Siemens and then through a number of tech firms, say more recently Virgin Media, where you and I would have first met, but also Alibaba, Microsoft, and now today at NCC. So in that time, what do you think has changed the most in how enterprise customers in particular buy? So what has changed with regards to how enterprise customers buy? And then how have salespeople adapted, do you think, to that change? And indeed, do you think they still need to adapt? What are your thoughts?
Um, my thoughts on that are that there's only one constant in technology sales, okay, and that constant is change. So, I would say that what has really changed, and what customers are expecting nowadays, from salespeople is clarity. Clarity in terms of understanding of their requirements, understanding of their business,
Mhm.
and understanding how we can actually help deliver value and deliver real business outcomes. Now, in
Yes.
the early days of sales, and believe me, I started in telesales. So I'm what they call a career sales professional, Mark. So I
Mm.
started in telesales when I was at uni, doing part-time jobs, selling timeshare, believe it or not. That's a very, very, oh, yes.
You have my respect. I take my hat off to you. Telesales alone, I never did. Obviously I had to make cold calls, but I never had a dedicated telesales role. But I really said, and I always, can I say, whenever sometimes you'd go to Spain, you'd be invited to go to timeshare sales pitches, and I always avoided them because I always assumed that I'm very easily sold to. But you absolutely have my respect on that.
Yeah,
Tell us more. So you started
yeah.
there.
I started there, but actually it wasn't timeshare in the traditional sense. It was timeshare of UK-based
Computing.
hotels.
Oh, all right,
No,
okay.
UK-based hotels.
All right.
So they had under occupancy during the week, and I was sort of tasked with selling executive club memberships, hotel memberships to very high wealth individuals, high value individuals, high wealth.
Mm.
And these people were very busy people. So getting them, you had to get straight to the point. So, back to clarity, value,
Yes.
and research. I can tell you for now that actually that much hasn't changed.
Mm.
The difference between me now and me then isn't huge in the way I approach things because back then I guess I was slightly different to other telesales peers. So what I would do is insane amounts of research, whereas everybody would just hit the phones and just try and get quantity in. I
Yes.
would focus on quality. So I would be looking at, well, hang on a sec, I've got a list of 100 people in front of me that I need to get through today. Well, actually, it's not about the number of calls I make, it's the number of leads that I
Yeah.
convert. So I would actually look at all those individuals and I'd do a bit of research. So I would actually think, well, where are they based? What's the best time of the day to get them? Um, what would I say to them that would get their attention, knowing that these are really busy people and probably don't have time to take a call? And I would make maybe only 20 calls, but I would close, I would say three-quarters of the calls that I made. People
Right.
would end up literally listening to a very short elevator pitch where I made it so personalized to them that it was literally a no-brainer. And they would just do it. So that taught me a lot. It taught me that if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail,
Super.
right? It taught me that the customer is absolutely, has to be absolutely at the heart of everything that you do. And that if you only talk about products that you're selling
Mm.
and not about the value that you're actually delivering to them and what that
Yes.
product means to them, then you'll never convert the sale. You'll
Mm.
never get the win.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And it's just all about people. You think, Mark, lots has changed over the I would say nearly 3 decades that I've been in sales. Okay. And I've progressed through from telesales to telemarketing to being a field sales representative to then, becoming year-marked for leadership and then indeed leading global teams and being a manager of managers. A lot has changed, but yet not a lot has changed because the basic principles are still there. Any salesperson that fails to see that it starts and ends with the customer
Mm.
won't be a successful salesperson. So while I may have adapted the sales techniques that I've used over the years, it always starts with research, lots and lots of research, lots of thought, thinking about providing clarity, clear, concise information to your customers about the value and the outcomes they will benefit from when they deal with you. And the really important thing there to note is that when you communicate things in those ways, in non-tech jargon, and keep it really simple, the customers actually prefer that
Mm.
rather than boring them with, oh, look at all these features. And,
Features.
it's the so what question, right? And that hasn't changed. The so what question is, so if you're going to make a statement like, "Oh, we are the world's leading cybersecurity, you know, provider," great. So what?
Mm.
What does that mean for me?
Mm. Mm. No, I
And
think that's a really
yeah,
interesting observation, and it's kind of absolutely strikes a chord. But I say the it starts and ends with the customer. It really is all
hmm
about them. But that it is an oddity because in many respects, I think many people outside of sales and perhaps even inside would look at salespeople as being very self-centered, very much, and we can be very much about ourselves.
hmm
But I think you're right. But the salesperson who really is only interested in themselves and isn't really interested in a customer doesn't articulate, it said, the opportunity or the value to the customer. They're unlikely to succeed in sales in the long term. They're unlikely, but they might get away with it in the short term, but unlikely to do it in the long term. So As I said, interesting. So even though I said the environment changes, I like what you said there: clarity, value, and research. If you were doing those 20 years ago, as I said, they'd stand you in good stead. And if you were giving advice to Simone Warren from 20 years ago, if you gave that advice now and said you're starting out in sales, these are the three things that I would recommend. I think you'd be that person, that individual that you in the past would be on track to success. So that's good to know. Okay, you mentioned cybersecurity there, and I think it's an interesting one because cybersecurity to me it seems as if that's pitched slightly differently. A lot of the time it is in terms of what's it going to do for you. It's what it's going to protect you from. There is, I think. Would you agree? There's potentially there's a lot of fear in the way that cybersecurity is perhaps promoted, how it's sold, and what are your thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, there's a lot of FUD,
Right.
fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Um, i- and I think that traditionally, cybersecurity organizations have maybe, um, I would say, featured quite heavily on that
Yeah.
promoting FUD,
Yes.
because clearly, if you make people feel scared, then they'll feel more compelled to do something.
Yes.
But I'd like to think of it a little bit more, carrying on from our earlier conversation, a little bit more as driving a different kind of conversation. So the conversation should really be about, back to what I said before, back to basics. It really doesn't matter whether you're selling cybersecurity or generative or agentic AI or routers or networks or whatever you're selling. If you move the conversation from less about features
Mm.
and more about outcomes, then it doesn't matter whether you're selling ice to the Eskimos. You will be able to get your point across and
Yes. Yes.
help the customer feel comfortable that you're the best person to partner with rather than your competitor or
Yeah.
your other competitors. So just about cybersecurity, people tend to get very feature orientated with cybersecurity, and they'll say things like, "Oh, um, if we help you build a SOC, yeah, or help you build your SOC and augment your SOC resources, Security Operations
Yeah.
Center,
Yeah.
um, we will be able to help you monitor all kinds of like cyber threats. We'll be able to help you prevent data leakage, data loss, protect your brand." If you have conversations like that, then customers will actually sort of go, "Oh, right, okay, I understand that." Whereas if you say something like, um, "You need more people so that you can have build your SOC." Well, that's really weak because it's like you're just telling the client what you think they need. You're not telling them what it's going to do for them.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, so you could actually turn around and say, having done your research, you could actually turn around and say something like, uh, well, if you had additional SOC resources, you could actually improve your online ordering system, the uptime of that system from 92% to 98%. Okay. That would equate to maybe 2, 3 million
Yeah. Could
a
do.
year in
Yes.
remediation costs, because you
Yes.
wouldn't have to remediate it.
Yeah.
And it can also boost your e-commerce revenue because your website would be up all the time versus having downtime. And we could see revenue boost of up to maybe 4, 5 million a quarter. Now, if you have that kind of conversation,
It's a different proposition, isn't it?
it's a completely different proposition because A, you've done your homework,
Yeah.
and B, you've you've changed the conversation from being about features
Yeah.
into something that is impactful in a very positive way for the customer. So no longer is it about just protection and just about moving away from fear. It's
Yes.
actually about being proactive and doing something so that you can actually sleep at night and not
Yes.
worry about whether your business is going to be suffering some kind of cyber attack.
Yeah, it also fits in, I think, to the shift from cyber, perhaps in the past having been very much a technical conversation at a technical level within an organization, much more now to a boardroom topic. Some of the things you mentioned there, as you said, actually, I don't think I've heard too often in the past, but he said how cybersecurity can deliver value and deliver benefits to other sides, to the revenue generation element of the organization. So I can even see in that situation that a cybersecurity solution would have a broader range of interested parties in the boardroom rather than it just being a specific tech thing. So are
I
the
mean, that's a
salespeople
very good
today,
example, though,
please?
because actually, if you think about it, you've got Marks and Spencers, the recent breach, Co-op,
Yes, yes,
Harrods, right? So they suffered data breaches, cybersecurity attacks, whatever you want to call it. And look what it did to them. Look how much money they lost. But more importantly than that, I'm an M&S customer, and I walked into my local M&S wanting to buy something, and their till systems were down.
all right,
So they lost my business that day, but I was only one customer out of the millions that
correct.
they
Multiply it
couldn't
by that.
transact with that day.
Yes,
And now I think, oh, if I'm going to shop online at M&S, um, should I?
yes,
Is my
yes,
data safe? Reputational damage, the impact on the brand is
yes,
huge. And just
yes.
from one supply chain breach, actually, they were hacked through their supply chain.
So one supply chain breach, but one, as I say, the issue there is it has been promoted far and wide. The media, basically, as you said, can make a story out of it because it's M&S, because these are household names. People are interested in it. But I hear of many organisations that people haven't heard of that get attacked and have
Mm.
basically been devastated by them, but they don't get the press because maybe they're not, as I said, household names. So, but I say, interesting to see that how that has shifted over. I don't know. I'm thinking when was actually things like antivirus, and again, which would have been a very basic kind of security proposition and an offering,
Hmm.
but we're talking probably going back 25 years, maybe even a little bit more. I don't know if it went back into the 1990s. So massive change in that time. Hey, listen, there's got to be a reason as to why there are how many. Tell me, how many vendors are there in the cybersecurity space? There seems to be half a dozen
Hundreds.
every couple of. I think it's thousands, Simone. I think it's going to be mad. And then how many resellers specializing in that, and then how many MSPs? It's a huge part, I think, of the tech environment, of the tech world, and I said seems to be growing year by year by year. I'm sure that's why I say NCC are probably growing as an organisation and and have a vision to grow more in the future. But look, let's change gears if I can a little here. I'm intrigued. This is our second series of the Channel Zone podcast. I'm just thinking, I think I had two women in series one. You are the only woman that I've had in series two. This is the final episode of that series. You're a woman, you're from an ethnic minority background in still what is a male dominated space. I think you've even told me before when you joined Siemens, I think when you were the only woman on the sales floor, I think. But what has that experience been like for you? And then also, what progress do you think has been made in the industry? Because I mentioned again in the introduction, I said about breaking barriers as an Asian woman in tech. You mentioned over, let's say, a quarter of a century. In that time, what's the experience been like, and what progress do you think the industry has made towards women?
Um, well, I think there's been progress. I mean, what it was like at the beginning was it was quite hard for as a female salesperson to be taken seriously
Right?
because um, women were always sort of pigeonholed into admin roles or HR roles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when I sort of rocked up as as a female salesperson, first of all, I was quite junior as well. Um, People were sort of like, it's a bit unusual. And in tech sales, language can get quite colorful, shall we say?
All right.
So some of my male colleagues would be maybe a little bit uneasy about whether they could be their usual sort of macho
Boisterous
selves,
rugby club
boisterous
self. Yes.
rugby club selves. Yeah, and without realizing, of course, that and I had actually gone to university in London, where they probably swear more in that region than anywhere else in the
Yeah.
UK.
Yeah.
But so I think really it was difficult, I would say, because and it's the same for anybody, whether whatever gender or whatever race or you are, you know. Um, it's always difficult when you meet people for the first time, because they look at you and they sort of go, "Oh, well, you're an unknown quantity." Um, so for me, it was a huge learning curve because for a lot of people, there's always discomfort when they see somebody different.
Mm.
It could be any kind of difference, someone with a disability, someone from a different ethnic background. It could be anything.
Mm.
Someone with a different sexual orientation, you know. Um, but actually, when you look past the difference, you can actually see that we're just all people.
Mm.
And I'm sure you remember that famous Peter Sellers speech, or it was like, what was it? I can't remember which film it was from, but I think it was a Peter Sellers film. And
Mm.
and he sort of goes, do Jews not bleed?
Oh, well, that's Shakespeare.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was Shakespeare, it
That's
was
right.
Shylock,
All right. I
but
was going to say yes.
there was a
Right.
comedy
Right.
made from it.
I've got
But
you.
effectively, it's like, we're all human,
Yes.
and so when I first joined, it was hard because they would automatically default to their preconceptions of me as a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
And, oh, is she a sales ops person then? Or,
Yes.
so
Yes.
there was
Yes.
that first thing. And then also customers would see me and they'd go, "Oh, you're our new account manager. What's happened to Ed or, Ben or whoever was looking after us before?" Oh, and then they'd be like, I would actually find they would ask me really, really technical questions,
Right.
like much more technical
To
questions
test you.
than to test me. So I had two ways that I could go. I could either be somebody who was like a relationship account manager, just turn up and then wheel in the subject matter experts when
Right.
they ask the technical
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Or I could do what I did, which is
Yes.
my preference. I immersed myself in all the technical courses. I have certifications as long as my arm, that I've gained over the years. Um, and effectively became the expert.
Mm. Mm.
So I became somebody that they could trust. Okay, that built up that credibility, the knowledge,
Yes.
so that they trusted me, and very quickly um, realized that I had the best interest at heart. So that
Mm.
those were the early days,
Yes. Do
right?
you think it's
And
changed now then? Do you think today
it's easier. It's
it's
easier.
easier now?
It's
Yeah, the
easier.
expectation is there, isn't it now? You
Yeah.
would have been, my guess is, you said it was, you would have been, say, one of a much smaller number. I don't know if you're aware, I think Dame Stephanie Shirley died, passed away this year. I don't know if you've ever come across her. She was one of the
No.
founders of the WCIT, the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists. You might see in
Oh,
the
right.
background there, that's my
Yes.
City of London, Freeman of the City of London certificate there. I was a member of the WCIT, but Stephanie Shirley, so she was a computer programmer. She's a little older than myself. I think she must be a good 20 years old. So she started, let's say, in the 1970s as a programmer. And combination. Not only was it a case of being a woman in tech, a programmer in tech. Also, if I remember rightly, she wanted to work from home because she had a young child that she was bringing up. The reason of it, she called herself for a long time Steve Shirley. She was Stephanie Shirley, but effectively, when writing letters to companies to try and introduce them to the concept of effectively remote working programmers, and she employed female programmers, but to succeed, that was the one a change that she had to make. She basically presented herself in a male environment as Steve Shirley. But anyway, she had a massively successful business, floated the company. I can't remember, it changed its name a couple of times, but it only grew over what must have been 30 years, and recognized, as I said, she was way before the end of her career. She was made a dame as well. So interesting to see. I have a daughter in the tech industry, was at Computer Center. And again, if I go back, I was at Computer Center in the early 90s, and it's exactly it. There were a few females in the sales force, not in the office that I was in. All of the females in the office that I was in would have been sales support. So, as you said, fitting
My
into
point
that kind of
exactly.
that gender category, effectively. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? Okay, and there was maybe an equal number for every salesperson. There was a sales support, but it was
mm.
very uh, male and female kind of oriented. I'd like to think, as I said, I think there's more opportunity today. It must have been much more challenging actually to getting a role in the industry 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was very challenging, but it all comes down to, and I've hired a lot of people over the years, as I progressed into
Mm,
leadership positions. And I think at the end of the day, you you do make decisions based on just skills and attitude. For me, there's kind of three things that make anybody successful. There's skills, attitude, and I guess disposition.
mm,
So, like when I say the three things that I look for when I hire anybody, regardless of their gender, is do they have actually the right attitude and the right disposition?
mm.
Because that's actually more important than the skills, because the skills you can train, you can give to
Yes.
somebody.
All right. Good point.
But if they basically don't have the right attitude,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
if their disposition is
Yes.
um how should I say, weak,
Yeah.
if they're not resilient,
Yeah. Yeah.
then um then you can't really give that to somebody.
I've heard
It's
the
not
phrase
it's not really
before.
a learned behavior, is it?
No, you're spot on with it. The phrase that I had heard, I think, was hire for character, train for skill. So as you
Exactly.
said, attitude and disposition. As said, as said, it's the person really. It is the character. So
Yeah.
super. So moving on, if I can, and again another little gear change here. Let's say it this way: sales can be relentless. It certainly is, and you've written a book that tells of the pressures that you experienced growing up, in Singapore. So how do you now think about managing pressure, both for yourself and what about for your team? How do you and your team deal with pressure, and how do you as a leader and a manager uh, actually, in terms of not dissipate pressure, but in many respects channel it positively as best as you can.
um I think you manage yourself. So I think there's always going to be pressure.
Mm,
There's always going to be stuff that happens around you that you have no control over. Okay. And what I think the world we live in is just increasingly pressurized,
mm,
because in fact, um, it's precisely because we are so digital nowadays that you get bombarded by messaging, you get bombarded by requests, demands on your time from all different directions, from work, from family. As you know, Mark,
mm,
there are lots of conflicting demands on everybody's time.
mm,
Um, and the best advice that anybody ever gave me once was you you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it.
Yes.
And that's how I learned to cope with pressure. So if you a little bit of background to talking
Yeah,
about growing
please.
up in Singapore.
Mm.
It's a very, very highly pressurized environment. So I was taking exams from when I was maybe about 7
Mm.
and being streamed, what you in the UK call top setting or setted.
Yeah.
I was being streamed all the way through my primary school education into secondary school,
Right.
and
Pressure in primary school.
pressure in
Pressure.
primary school when you
Performance pressure.
performance pressure already at that age, and um, it was ridiculous, like you were tested every week on every single subject. If you didn't do well, you would get report cards, daily report cards that you'd take back home, and your parents had to sign it off so that they would know that you were
Right.
discussing it with your parents. I mean, the whole myth of the Asian tiger parent is a
Yes.
very real thing,
I was going to say
you
it's not a
know.
myth, is it? It's not a
Not a
myth.
myth.
It's the no.
It's
It's a
real.
meme. We all know about it, but it
Yes,
said yes. But you lived it.
I lived it.
Are
Yeah, I
you it?
lived
But
it. Yeah.
are you the tiger mom yourself
No,
though? All
not
right.
at all.
Okay.
I'm not at all the tiger mum, precisely because I grew up in that
You lived
environment.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I I would say that the lessons that I learned from an early age was that you are dealt whatever environment you're born in, okay, your family that you're born into. You can't change those things. I am who I am,
Yes.
and I've come from where I've come from. I can't change that. But what I can do is learn to change the way I think, okay, and choose the behaviors and choose the way I want to react to things. And that's how I cope with pressure. Quite
Hmm.
simply, I don't worry about things I can't control, because if you can't
Right.
control them, what's the point of worrying about them?
Right.
And if there's something that I don't like that I can actually change, then I'll just change it.
Yes.
So then there's no point worrying about it.
Let me ask a specific question on that one then. Say the pressure, the pressure. How would you deal then with the pressure we can put ourselves under? You've got an end of quarter approaching or the end of
Mm.
year. You've got a deal that's due to be
Slipping.
coming in. It's for let's assume it. How about it? The as I said, dealing with that pressure. You've got a time. You've got a deadline approaching. You've got a customer who's not moving things forward or as quickly or as swiftly or as cleanly as you may want. Because I think that's perhaps the most challenging area I have found over the years. As I said, in that kind of waiting for the purchase order, waiting for how would you deal? Because as you said, you can't control that. You can't control that situation. It's the customer's situation. It's the it's the time that it might take for an order to be processed within that organization. But as a salesperson myself, I think that's perhaps been the most challenging one. Difficult to just put that situation to one side and not fret or worry about it when there's a deadline approaching. And possibly, if it's a large deal, Simone, I'm sure you've been involved in some humongous deals,
I have.
complete visibility with all of the senior leaders within the organization as well,
Hmm.
waiting for that deal to drop. I'm intrigued. And what's your how do you deal with that pressure?
Um, I deal with it by, it's almost like playing chess. Okay. So I deal with it by actually going back, maybe I would say 6 to 12 months before that.
Right?
So I'll take it back to basics again. I really believe in going back to basics, Mark.
Mm,
But
yes.
if you had if I had qualified
Yes.
the opportunity
Yes.
well enough early on,
Yes.
then I would have known what the timeline was.
Yes.
So I would argue that actually any pressure
Yeah.
at the end of the sales cycle could be avoided if you ask the right questions early on.
Could be.
And
I'll play devil's advocate if I can, though, on that one, because I
you
said
can.
the pressure there on that is. But notice the difference, the pressure in some respects. Let's assume then that the customer is going to come through. The order is going to come through. The
Okay.
challenge, though, the challenge a lot of the time, though, is it's not coming through on our preferred timeline, which is we want it this quarter. We don't want it next quarter. Yeah, they don't want it the quarter after. They want it this quarter. I mean, so that's that. I have sensed, because it's been many years since I've worked for an organization. I've worked for myself now, believe it or not, for just under 30 years. It will be my 30th year next year. So the deadlines that I have are somewhat different, but I would have said within an organization, just look at it that way. Look what happens at the end. Look what happens at the end of a quarter. You tell me. From the outside
Well,
looking in, I worked at tech companies. Prices are dropped. Customers take advantage of
yeah,
those situations.
yes.
Um,
Yeah, prices are dropped. You offer clients freebies, extra
Inducements,
days,
correct. Anything,
inducements. Of
yes,
course you do.
correct. To
Of
bring
course
the
you
order
do.
in now.
Yeah, but also there are other levers that you can pull. So you can create compelling events as a salesperson, not just by dropping price.
No, I
You can
agree.
create compelling events by saying to them throughout the sales cycle, leading
Right.
up to the
Yeah,
quarter. So
yeah,
back to playing chess. So I like to, uh, I always, at the start of any year, I always look at territory planning, okay, with my team. And and when we're working on really large deals and we're talking several hundred million, eh, um, there is a timeline, okay? And there are persuasive techniques that you can use to explain to a customer when you are so in sync with your customer. I mean, I've actually, as an account manager, been inside board planning meetings with my customers
right.
at board level,
Yeah, yeah.
sitting with them, looking at their 5-year business plan. And I'm sat there as the only supplier in the world in the room.
Mm, mm.
Okay. And I'm literally saying to them, okay, so you want to acquire that business on that date. Well, if you want to do that by that date, then you need to have this network
Yeah,
in place by
yeah.
this date, because otherwise
Yes, that's
you're
right.
not going to
That's
hit
right.
that,
That's
you're
right.
not going to hit your deadline.
But
You're
that's the
not going to grow your
customer's date.
business.
They say that's the customer's date, and I say the customer's date is the most important one. I just fancied testing you
Yeah,
out there to
but you
see how
see,
you would.
but you see, that's the whole point. If you are really close to your customer,
Yes, you'd know
you
it.
will know your customer
Okay,
states, and you will then be
gotcha.
forecasting accurately.
Correctly. You won't forecast it for this quarter.
Correctly,
You'll be forecasting
exactly.
it for
For
next
next
quarter.
quarter. So your forecast is then absolutely spot on because you are so in sync. You
Yeah,
have asked the customer the right questions
yeah.
to the point where you know your forecast is ironclad.
Yes,
No
yes.
pressure.
Do you use, I don't know if you've used it previously then, because do you use a sales qualification, an opportunity qualification tool? MedPick seems to be the one that is
I've
generally
yeah,
used.
I've used them
You've
all.
done them all.
Spin, I've used Spin, I've used
Taz, target
the
account selling, Miller
Taz, yeah,
Hyman.
Miller Hyman. I've done a variety of them
You've
over
done
the
them all.
years.
Yes,
Yes, yeah, I've been in this game a long time.
yes, yeah.
SFU.
Well, as have I, but do you know it's interesting. There is a quote, I believe. And I believe it is an Albert Einstein quote, which is something along the lines of, the older he gets, the more he realizes, the less he knows. And I would
Yes.
say at 61, I feel that way. I definitely feel that way. I can still see. My God, if only I'd have known that 5 years ago. There still seems to be more and more to learn. And from my own perspective, I said, if I can open the kimono a little bit and reveal, I started, I say a reference, I started working for myself 30 years ago, because only after 10 years in sales, as a man of, at that time, 32 years of age, I thought I knew it all. It's hard to believe. And here I am, I say, 30 years later, realizing, I said, it's a conundrum, because sales on one side is so incredibly complex, but also at the same time simple. There's a simple element to it as well.
It's just about people, and
I would
and
go with that,
and
and
it
relationships.
it's about people
Yeah,
and understanding why they buy, and just thinking, putting yourself in their shoes. Empathy, it's so
yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah,
Putting yourself in their shoes and thinking, how would I feel if I was that person? You
yeah,
know, and if you can do that, I think that makes you the friend,
yeah.
more than a trusted advisor, the friend.
Yes.
Some of my customers from years ago are still my friends to this day.
Yeah, no, for me also, that's one of the things that I look for. The companies that I worked for, I've kind of remained friends with people, and that's a great testimony, I think, not only to your personal relationships but also professional relationship as well. Because if it had been in any way poorly performing on a professional side, then it would have suffered as a consequence. Listen, we've covered a lot of bases there. You've got then the you've written, as I said, and published first installment of the memoir, The Fate We Make. It's a planned trilogy, you're telling me. So there's two more installments, still under the title The Fate We Make. The first part was subtitled,
Heartbreak
okay, and that takes you up to what age in particular? Then is that a
takes me up to 2022. So how old would I been then? Early 50s.
right? Okay, and what's the next part then?
Next part is about someone else's story, someone you
All
find
right.
out about in book one, but connected
Okay.
to me.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
the third, that's called Hurting.
Yeah.
And the third installment is
Yeah.
called Healing. I
Super.
like alliteration, keeps everything very simple, easy to remember.
Yeah, well, and that's right. As a trainer, same here on that one. So, listen, good luck with that. Congratulations on. I mean, it's a huge task. I've written two books myself, but they're wafer thin in many respects. They're
I
meant
have
to
them.
be.
I
Thank you
have
very
them,
much.
Mark.
I hope you've been able to take something from them, but good luck with your future publishing, but also good luck with your time at NCC. The final note that I'll say, because I think I had referenced it to you before, I don't think I mentioned it in our conversation here, but NCC, although an MSP, a cybersecurity specialist MSP, in the
Hmm.
dim and distant past, I first encountered NCC, the National Computer Center, as was then, back in 1982. It might have been 81 or 82. When I left school, I did a diploma in data processing, which was a certificate from the NCC. And I was back in Wales recently going through a box of old photographs and stuff, and I did actually find that original certificate. But I'm going to have to make sure I keep it in my archives here. Next time I go back, I'll pick it up. But anyway, interesting to see that. So NCC is where you are today. Good luck with the future. Simone, thanks ever so much for being with us here today, and I say, and exploring the topics that we have. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have too, and I hope our listeners and viewers will as well in the future. Simone, thank you very much for being with us, and I hope to see you again in the not too distant future.
You're very welcome, Mark. It's been absolutely my pleasure. And
Super.
happy to join you again in the future if you want me
Well,
to.
let's see. If not season 3, then maybe season 4. But until then, all the very best, Simone. Cheers.
Cheers.